we waited, and now, as of last night, we found out that we just have to wait a little bit more. The next massive update to Darkest Dungeon 2, the Altar of Hope update, is going to drop early next week, and so we're going to review everything that was covered in the blog post that happened yesterday, all of the ins and outs of the new systems, whatever we can glean from the screenshots and blog post that was shared, and then we're also going to talk a bit about our own speculation of what this means for the game moving forward. They start us off with two quotes that I think summarize quite well the nature of what they're focusing on with this update. The first is, "At each journey's onset, a moment of respite. Rest your weary bones, warm your face in the candle glow, and remember the world as it once was." And the second, "Hope allows you to remember the world as it used to be, keeping a vision of a simpler time alive." I can picture Wayne saying both of those far better than I can there. Excited to hear them. The upcoming Altar of Hope update introduces a massive new progression system to Darkest Dungeon 2, which allows you to invest in upgrades, perks, and unlocks that suit your playstyle and strategy. This right here is the first screen that they share with us, and it is the embark screen. So you can see in the lower left-hand corner, there's an embark button, but the first thing, the color pop on this screen, is the candles. This is the new resource that they are introducing. They alluded to it in the Bounty Hunter blog post. If you want to see my thoughts and a summary of all of the Bounty Hunter skills, the systems surrounding it, I'll link a video down below that has more information about that. But Candles of Hope. On your expeditions, you will collect Candles of Hope by completing objectives, progressing through areas, and defeating evils along the way. They make an important note here that candles cannot be bought, they can only be earned, so they are a meta progression system, but by no means a cash grab by Red Hook. These candles are going to be at the heart of the risk and reward system that Red Hook is trying to lay out. In true Darkest Dungeon fashion, the best results come from daring deeds. You'll also need to choose when to take a safer path. The best rewards can only be gained by making it all the way to the confession boss. Of course, this is not always possible. Fortunately, candles can be earned with incremental success as well. So the idea is, as you press forward, you're going to be collecting more and more of these candles, and if at some point your cart goes into a ditch, all your heroes die, you will lose some portion of what you collected. So first point that they make here is that cashing out. If you choose to, you can end any expedition gracefully at an inn. You'll keep whatever candles you have earned so far in that journey. So that's like the, I don't think I'm going to make it to the next area, let me tap out. Risking it. If you choose to push on past the inn, be aware that a mid-region party wipe or abandoned expedition will penalize your total candles earned. It is always better to make it to the next inn. So in the middle here, we know that we're going to be able to like choose a safer path within a particular region if we say lose someone or try to recover. As we've talked about, recovery is not really a mechanic that's too present now that the Guardians are mandatory, but I think it's still an interesting concept. And then last but not least, the pinnacle. If you reach the mountain, you will keep every candle you've earned that expedition, even if you fail. You have no reason not to face your failures. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not you press forward after a moment's sanctuary at the inn should be something that weighs heavily when tending to your party and surveying what challenges lay ahead. There is no shame in ending your expedition here, carrying your candles home, and spending them on upgrades at the altar. It is crucial to recollect more of what has been forgotten to the darkness. Eventually, you will find yourself making it farther and farther on each journey until you ultimately reach the mountain. So a couple interesting things in this piece here. So first of all, the statement, "it is crucial to recollect more of what has been forgotten," is speaking to this idea that this patch is very sort of memories centric. When you are rebuilding things, you are also remembering them, and the candles represent memory and hope. There's kind of like a mixed metaphor there. And then the second piece is really about the power system within the game. So they say eventually you will find yourself making it farther and farther on each journey until you ultimately reach the mountain. Now this is good because they want the meta progression system to feel like progression, right? So you have to be gaining some capability, but as we know and we've learned kind of recently from some of the other games we play, it is dangerous to lock too much meta progression behind systems of unlocks. Basically, you don't want the game to feel impossible when you first start out and then only become possible as you invest tens and tens of hours into the game, unlocking characters and that sort of thing. So that's a very interesting dynamic. I think if they do it well, it's going to feel really good. And if they don't do it well, it may feel like you're kind of artificially hamstrung in the early game, only to later win fights simply because you have power that you didn't previously have. So one of the other things that was mentioned there is the Altar of Hope. These are just two quotes associated with this idea of the Altar of Hope. You can recall it if you try. Amber glow suffusing the city's window panes, the soft crackle of a fire in the hearth, the lap of gentle waves against the sand. This kingdom was imperfect, but it was ours. Now it stands in ruin until you can invest in it once more with hope. And you will find brief succor in the soft glow of the altar. Meditate on that which you have lost and that which you would rebuild. So again, this retrospective what was, we're trying to rebuild it. Hope, aka candles, are this resource that we are going to be spending in the interest of rebuilding it. If we were to liken this to Darkest Dungeon 1, these are the crests, portraits, etc. that we collected. This right here is the altar. Couple notes that were not mentioned in the actual patch note blog. First of all, this image, when downloaded off of the Red Hook website, is titled Altar Node. So we know that this is a thing that we are going to find on our journey at some point. This one looks like it's probably from the valley, which is the first very short zone. The other thing is down here at the bottom, you can see the highlight of where a name placard will go. So presumably this is a node that we will encounter once or maybe multiple times. If we actually look at that quote there, it sounds from the second quote, you will find brief succor in the soft glow of the altar, meditate on that which you have lost and that which you would rebuild. That feels to me like something you might encounter multiple times. It's possible the Altar of Hope replaces the Hero Shrine. We'll have to wait and see. Now, they talk about meaningful choices. At the beginning of each journey, you will visit the Altar of Hope. This is where you invest your hope candles in one of the 4 regions detailed below. So 2 important things here. We knew that we were going to have an Altar of Hope node and we would visit it once. This might indicate that it's only once. I wouldn't be surprised though if we can hit it a couple of times through a run. We'll have to wait and see. And then the second important thing is the hope parenthetical candles here really implies that the hope system that exists now in Darkest Dungeon 2 is completely being supplanted by candles. It doesn't sound like there's going to be 2 resources, hope and candles. I think we're just collecting candles from this point forward. They go on, the choices you make generally help not only your current quest, but future expeditions as well. Through time and effort, you will give yourself better and better chances to conquer your failures. So this is about, again, about the power escalation that's going to come from unlocks and the fact that unlocks are sometimes going to affect future expeditions and may sometimes only affect the expedition that we're currently on. So other notes about this particular screen, which I still find a little confusing because it also says Altar of Hope. So it's possible that this is like the crossroads that we hit before we go any further or something like that. It appears to be maybe a node that is in that like dream state as we first enter. But anyways, we're going to hit it. And then there are these 5 icons in the lower left and then also an embark button. Interestingly, the 5 icons also happen to map to 5 ruins that are scattered across the landscape. Presumably, each one of these will map to one of the ruins, and we'll talk more about rebuilding as we go a little further, but in the blog post, they highlight all 5 of these ruins, I believe. Also of note, we might recognize the previous crossroads is alluded to here on the path where that arrow is pointing. So the first of the sections is the Intrepid Coast, and this is labeled as being filled with general upgrades. The Intrepid Coast offers a mixture of functional and aesthetic upgrades, such as bonuses when reaching certain locations, beginning runs with greater resources in pocket, increased inventory space, and more. These boons are permanent once unlocked. So every time we spend candles at the Intrepid Coast, it sounds like we're just getting general power increases, be it starting with some gold in our pocket or storage, etc. This is what the UI element for the Intrepid Coast will look like. You can again see the academic is hanging out on the left, and then we have the 5 different genres of upgrades that we will be able to select. For Journey, we see that we can spend 96 total candles on Journey. Presumably the early upgrades are cheaper, and then the further space between them indicates that some of the larger upgrades that are later may cost more candles. We might imagine that maybe it's 4 candles per at the beginning, and then the later ones are 8 or 12 candles. Journey here could mean a lot of different things. My gut is that it is about whatever the driving meta game is going to become in the future. So more resources from hitting things, more chance of scouting, more positive banter, maybe some stress reduction on the road. All of these things I think will pop up. Resourcefulness. Now that I think about it, this may be the place where scouting comes in. It might modify some of the nodes that we have access to, the amount of resources that we get from interactions, loot from bosses, etc. might all be in this category. And then my suspicion is that Renown is going to be modifying the assistance and resistance encounters. So your relationship with the larger world. But it's hard to say. We can see here, though, clearly that we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 plus candles sunk in just on this one section. And then on top of that, companions, which we know are a aesthetic item that's going to like hang around the stagecoach as we go places, is also going to be something that we unlock in the Intrepid Coast. And then also Infernal Flame, it looks like, is getting a major overhaul. Now, it's possible that there will still be the stagecoach item, the Infernal Flame, but I have a feeling that this is going to modify the nature of the Infernal Flame. Maybe making it more severe, maybe giving us unlocks moving forward. It is interesting because given that these are all permanent changes, presumably anything we invest in the Infernal Flame is going to permanently affect our run. So we'll have to see how that pans out. The next section we're going to look at is the Living City. This is also headlined as the Heroes modification. The Living City is where you unlock heroes, permanent buffs, and trinkets, and some other surprises. This is also now where hero paths are unlocked. As you invest candles along each hero's track, their chances at surviving will increase dramatically. Note, the increased death blow resist on offer. So, first of all, I think they just wanted to point out that death blow resist was in here. I didn't actually see anything in the blog post that showed it. But what we can see here is we're going to be investing about 60 to 70 candles in each of our heroes. Curiously, the Hellion has more candle potential, 68 rather than 64. Not sure what that's about. They may all be variable. But again, we have the same system where there's brief pauses between the milestones, and then they get longer and longer as you go on. So the higher tier unlocks are going to be more expensive. It's interesting that they mentioned trinkets. Obviously, class-based trinkets will be here. Hero paths will be here. I assume also hero skills will be here. And then some other surprises that they don't specifically mention, but I also presume that you are going to have to initially unlock the heroes. Actually, that might be the difference between the Hellion and the Plague Doctor here, is that the Hellion is grayed out, whereas the Plague Doctor is in color. So maybe it is 4 candles to unlock a hero, and then you start working on them. But the Living City is going to be the place where we build up the strength of our heroes, similar to how we did with hero shrines before, which is why I have this suspicion that hero shrines are going to change their nature. The third area is the working fields, aka the items area. The working fields is where you expand your available pool of items. Stagecoach upgrades, trinkets, combat items, and in items can all be discovered here. Once unlocked, an item can be found in all future expeditions. You will also have that item added to your inventory immediately for the current expedition. If you find that the variety of trinkets and items that you are looting isn't particularly diverse, give a thought to Tools of Iron and invest candles here. This is what the UI looks like for this one. They break down the items in a way that we're very familiar with: combat items, stagecoach items, rest items, and trinket items, and we will have to unlock all of them. One thing that we don't know here is you can see that there is an 80-30-30-30 split across the board for each of those, the amount of candles that you can invest in any given one. And curiously, we don't know if this is going to be a progression, like you have to unlock trinket 1 in order to unlock trinket 2, or you don't have to unlock trinket 1 to unlock trinket 2. Earlier in the blog post, they said that you would be able to tailor your runs by selecting things opportunistically. So it sounds like you're going to have a whole bunch of options to pick from and be able to choose what trinkets or combat items you want to enhance your runs with. So for instance, me, I'm going to be unlocking smoke bombs early. The one note, and this is something that we've talked about a bit in the Discord, is if the working fields allow you to unlock only specific trinkets, it's going to be very advantageous to ignore a lot of the low value trinkets and only unlock those like S tier trinkets to reduce the pool of trinkets that you will have access to moving forward. They then show the screen after you have restored the Fates Foreteller trinket, which we don't know how much it cost. We don't know if you had to unlock other things to get it. We do know that this is one of the yellow tier trinkets, so presumably it's going to be more expensive to unlock than several other ones. I think it's a bit of a misdirect to notice that in the first screenshot they show you having 20 candles, and then after you unlock Fate's Foreteller, you have 19. I don't think trinkets are going to be a single candle to unlock. That seems way, way too cheap, especially for top tier trinkets. But the working fields is going to be a place that we spend a lot of time because we want to get access to those particular trinkets that enable the kinds of builds that we want to execute. And also there's a lot of high power stagecoach items and trinkets and combat items. Paired with this, still in the items section, is the recollection. The recollection view will show you all of the items that you have unlocked. There are hundreds in all. This is really just a place for you to go look at what you've unlocked. Not particularly useful, won't be important to starting your journey. You're not spending any candles here. This, though, is what it looks like. You can see that it's got the standard filters that we're very used to and a whole bunch of stuff that this particular run has unlocked, including the almanacs, which we see very rarely, but I believe you can get from academic studies. Those are in the lower right-hand corner there. Now on to what I would consider to be the biggest singular change. This is the Timeless Woods. This is memories and hero persistence. The Timeless Wood is where you can spend candles to unlock memories for each of your heroes. In our endeavor to recall to memory something long forgotten, we often find ourselves upon the very verge of remembrance without being able, in the end, to remember. Well, Edgar Allan Poe quote here. But the memories system is something that we'll go into in a lot more detail right after we take a look at this. This is what the Timeless Wood interface looks like. You can see in this case there's 67 candles worth of unlocks to get here, and we'll delve into the interface a little bit more, but there was a huge chunk of blog text we're going to have to go over first, explaining the memories and hero persistence system. So, Hero memories. Our memories have power over us, and as such, they grant powerful benefits. However, despite its potency, memory is also fleeting. Memories only last for that hero's specific life and are wiped upon death. Memories are a more complex mechanic than the other altar unlockables due to their ephemeral nature, but ultimately, this will prove rewarding to canny and experienced players. So, what we know so far is for the first time, heroes dying has impact outside of the current run, potentially, because we now know that these things that we're investing in heroes' memories are potentially going to evaporate if we die. The goal of any expedition is to vanquish the confession boss at the final stage, and doing so comes with a reward beyond mere recognition and triumph over one's worse nature. Any heroes who survive the final battle will retain their memories. While their mastery level will be reset, surviving heroes will also keep their hero path, quirk, and name. Plus, heroes who survive a final boss battle can now have an additional memory invested. These characters will persist until the hero's death. Persistence while it lasts. And finally, a great new challenge emerges for those willing to tackle it, defeating all 5 confession bosses in order with the same party of 4 heroes, all who are filled with memories. So now to go back, because I think now we have an understanding of the system, the first thing we notice is the interaction that this screenshot was highlighting, which is the user has just clicked on Paracelsus's first slot and been offered 3 memories at a cost of 4 candles each. One is a crutch, one is a hand, and one is a flower. So presumably this is the interface for saying, I want a particular memory. Now, the assumption that I am making here is that you unlock memories, like a pool of memories, as you are progressing a character in the other hero progression space. And then, in addition to that, you have to buy the memories as you press forward. So as you move further and further through a run, you're going to get more spaces. The reason there are no plus signs next to Barristan and Dismas's second slot is because they have not yet survived a final boss. So presumably at the beginning of every run, you have the ability to outfit your team with 4 memories. And maybe you choose the crutch because that one is about helping the elderly, so you get more healing or something like that. And then as you progress further, you beat the first boss. Let's see, this team, which is a very strong team, beats the first boss and comes back for seconds. The characters will retain their names and their paths, but there will be a plus button in the second column for each of them that will enable them to get a second memory. And maybe some of these memories will synergize and be particularly valuable. Only time will tell. The other thing just to note is we have 2 selected memories. Barristan apparently remembers a piece of cake, and Dismas remembers a pile of coins. And these could have any number of things. Maybe this increases your relic loot and increases your food loot if Barristan is running. Hard to know, only time will tell, but this creates a really interesting dynamic because, as they mentioned, we have this ultimate achievement of 4 characters, all 5 chapters. You get a full set of memories for all of them type of thing. But it also creates a lot more customization in the nature of your characters. Maybe you have a rogue highwayman and there's some memory that is particularly beneficial about movement, right? So every time you point blank shot, your memory gives you that little bit of extra oomph or something like that. And I presume that the 67 in the upper right-hand corner is unlocking memories, but that's hard to know. It doesn't really make sense. Clearly on the screen right now, we have not spent 31 of 67 memories, and also because there is a progression here, it wouldn't make sense that this is just a counter that's counting up how full our memories are. So, last but not least, the final little note after that massive section on memories is about restoration. As you invest hope in the altar, the view of the kingdom will gradually become as it once was, whole and majestic. Perhaps all can be put right after all. And they show us this nice little gleaming farmstead, which incidentally matches up with the background. So if we go back to the altar of hope, and then we overlay that particular image on top of it, we see that it fits in perfectly and even matches up on that left-hand edge with the little previous barn. So very cool little detail. Much like the hamlet from Darkest Dungeon 1, we will be rebuilding this landscape into a shining metropolis or something like that. As for other minor speculation about this, if I had to guess, we're going to have the Lost Coast down here in the corner. We're going to have the Living City over here. We're going to have the working fields in the upper right-hand corner there. We're going to have the Recollection down in the lower right. That one is mostly by process of elimination, but I can't imagine what else that ruin would be, even though I think the Recollection was part of the working field, so maybe there's a ruin that we don't know about yet, and that one might be wrong. And then last but not least, the Timeless Woods are going to be located presumably right there. So that is my first look at this blog post. I'm super duper excited. I think this is amazing. I think there's a huge amount of new replayability and interesting progression that's going to be added with this patch. And I'll add a few little bits of speculation in a moment. But before I go any further, if you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative, enlightening, and delivered in a way that was useful to you. If that's the case, please toss me a like, a subscription if you want more content like this, or you want to join me on my live streams Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. There's also a Discord linked below if you want to talk more about theories and those sorts of things. But now, my high-level speculative thing. I think this is a huge change to Darkest Dungeon 2. I think they're going to reset the meta progression system, so all of our hope will be lost. Even if that's not the case, if they just convert hope to candles, and I did a bit of back of the envelope math, I would guess that the conversion ratio is probably going to be like 10 or 100 to 1 hope to candles. So that would indicate, if I had to guess, that we're going to be trying to get about 10,000 candles in order to fully unlock everything. They will probably reset it just because they want people who are playing early access to progress through this content so they can understand what's working well, what's tweaked well, and what's not, and there's nobody better than players. So even if they don't, if they do some type of transfer of hope to candles, I will probably be starting a brand new run right off the bat. The other thing that we know is that candles are going to be a permanent upgrade resource and also a temporary buff resource. We know that the bounty hunter is going to be a once per run 4 candles type of thing. We also know that cheap upgrades are 4 candles. That means every time you hire the bounty hunter, you are choosing not to unlock somebody else. So I think that there is going to be a difficult trade-off there. I'm also very curious because now that we have the character unlocks, we know that we're going to have to unlock the bounty hunter over time. So are we going to be doing that through the Living City, or are we going to be doing that out in the field? I mentioned it a couple times here, but I am super curious what they end up doing with hero shrines. I kind of expect that maybe hero shrines are going away, but then I am very curious where those story beats that they previously had are going to be. Maybe we continue to unlock hero abilities at the hero shrines, but then hero trinkets and hero paths and those sorts of things live in the Living City, but it's hard to know. So that's kind of all my major thoughts. Overall, I'm just super excited. I think this patch is going to breathe new life into the game. It's going to be really cool, and I'm super excited to try it out. I will be streaming it next week just as soon as the patch drops. But for now, I hope this was informative and useful. Thank you so much for watching, and leave a comment below letting me know what you think. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? Have a good one. Bye-bye.